check. Just one. Check. Okay. Yes. Just want to check. Just test, check. Test, test one, test, check.
Morning, Tom. Hi, Faith. Lindley.
I'm assuming nothing's started yet.
I don't believe so.
Thank you.
No.
Bonnie, is there a reason that the meeting hasn't started?
I'm trying to reach Tom right now, trying to see what could be the problem. That's exactly what I'm doing. And good to see you, and Ray.
Okay, because I see the Richmond Ions microphone there, but nobody's there.
Right, that's exactly what I'm trying to. I'm just saying, is there a message? Let's find out. I'm just sending it to him right now. And did you say there was nobody? I'm looking for that, and
For me, it's in the second row. It shows
okay, let's
a
see.
microphone at a stand, but nobody's around.
Oh, really? Oh, dear. Was I just?
If
let's
you
see.
call the phone number that's listed, the passcode doesn't work. So
No, yeah, that's, let me see.
that's what I tried. I tried the phone number and then the passcode, but there's actually two passcodes. So maybe I tried the wrong one. There's two of
Yeah,
them.
well, no, I have his cell phone number.
Okay.
So I'm calling him on his cell.
Okay.
That's why yeah. Let's see, Tom Hanks.
Just talk to Tom. They're getting ready to start right now.
Okay, who's this?
This is Lindley.
Oh, Lindley, good to hear from you. Thank you, Lindley.
You're welcome.
This is Bunny.
Hi, Bunny. How are you?
Good. Good to hear your voice.
That's good to be heard.
Yes.
I don't see any picture of the room that they're in.
Here, Tom's at the podium now. He just got on.
How do you, I don't.
It's
see
on
it.
mute. It's just one of the rectangles near the top of my screen.
See, I don't have any, like I can see you now because you're speaking, but I don't have any. Usually I can see thumbnails of everything and I don't
Go
see
over
any.
to the right, the upper right.
Okay, you're unmuted, Tom.
I'm on mute.
You're unmuted.
Okay. Are you gonna?
Hang on a second. I don't know why Janie's still up there. You're the only one that's unmuted. Check. Okay. I assume everybody out there can hear me. This is Dan. Tom's on screen. So if you could, I'm trying to get Tom in speaker view, but for some reason I got Janie.
Not on my screen, Dan. I see everybody, including Tom.
Am I
So
still muted?
So please mute yourself, Janie. Kathleen, mute yourself. Faith, mute yourself. Come on. Got to do it again. Okay, you're unmuted, Tom.
Okay, good morning, everyone. For those who don't know me, my name is Tom Coates, and welcome to the August 21st, 2021 Richmond Ions Community Group meeting. We have a small crowd here in person. Am I heard on there or no? Dan?
Yeah, you are.
Okay. We have a small crowd in person today, I guess indicating that the virus is working perfectly and scaring everybody away. But nevertheless, we have some brave souls who've come out in person, and we have a good crowd on Zoom. For those who are not familiar with IONS, it is an international organization headquartered in Petaluma, California. It was commenced in 1973 by Edgar Mitchell, who was the Apollo 14 lunar landing module pilot. And he, like many others those others who walked on the moon in the Apollo program, had his own takeaway from the experience. He had a unity consciousness experience on the way back to Earth after the moon landing and so forth, and decided at that point to dedicate his life, the rest of his life, to the exploration of consciousness, especially the interface between science and spirit. And he created IONS as a vehicle for doing that, the Institute of Noetic Sciences, and it's been going ever since. And that was in '73. I think his moon thing was in '71 or '2. And in any event, we've been fortunate. We started our Richmond Ions Community Group in 1996, January of that year, and we have been working along ever since, even through difficulties like COVID and so forth. As most of you know, we had to go on Zoom only starting last year when the COVID pandemic came along. Since it opened up again in June of this year, we've been doing a combination of Zoom and in-person meetings, and we are continuing to do that. We hope that the pandemic will ease up here in the next 2 or 3 months, so that we can start to have people feel comfortable coming back and gathering in person again. I would note, interestingly enough, that we were informed this morning by the Terrell, the fellow that helps us with our setup here at St. Mary's, that the AA groups that are meeting here today and other days have mask requirements. Our group does not, for reasons that are only God knows, presumably. But but maybe it's because at some level they realize that we're operating at a higher vibration than the AA group. I don't know. But in any event, we would also mention too, we don't have much of a crowd in person today, but we still have costs for the space and so forth. And so we would encourage everyone to make donations. The website has a PayPal function on it. We invite everyone who's on Zoom, go to the website, make a PayPal donation, and we would very much appreciate it because it's those love offerings that allow us to keep going month after month and have allowed us to keep going from January 1996 until now. Getting on with today's program, we have a wonderful program for you today, and whether you're in person or on Zoom. It's called Zero to Light Speed, Social Entrepreneurship and Healing. Our speaker today is a distinguished academe who a few years ago was on was a professor with tenure at University of Georgia. Is that right? Okay. Oh, tenure at VCU, and she had been at VCU for a number of years, and then had as we put in the flyer, she thought all the boxes in her life were already checked, and all of a sudden, within a very short span of time, in 2018, she lost both her older sister and her husband, and that created that upheaval and the interior work that followed opened up all sorts of new avenues, new spiritual consciousness, new connections, and she ended up leaving her position in academia and opting to, with guidance from what she refers to as divine guidance, and having heard her story, I have no doubt that's exactly what it is. Setting up a nonprofit called the Foundation for Family and Community Healing. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to today's speaker, Susanna Wu-Pong Calvert. We're very pleased to have her, and I ask everybody, both in person and on Zoom, give her a big hand.
Thank you, Tom. Is that good? Okay. I hope they can hear us on Zoom. I really appreciate the invitation to join your beautiful community today. You've done an amazing job gathering this group and keeping everybody together in such a wonderful way that's so enriching for everybody. And I'm honored to be here today. So I will also lead the meditation for this morning. So if you wish to join us, please. Let's see. I guess my notes view doesn't want to come up. Okay, there we go. So if you wish to join us, please close your eyes and plant your feet firmly on the ground. And let's imagine a bubble of light surrounding all of us, protecting us so that only beings of love and light may enter. Now imagine a column of golden light going from your seat to deep into the fiery core of Earth. Just feel your tension and any stress or anxiety in your body to drain deep into Earth. And with your heart, thank her for receiving it and helping us all heal. Now imagine a column of white light from your crown chakra going straight up into the heavens. Now you are perfectly balanced between the two realms, heaven and earth. Feel yourself being held as you always are. Now imagine your heart chakra flowing a brilliant green in your chest like an emerald. Feel the warmth, energy, the love filling your chest. Feel it as it permeates all of your body. And now imagine you as a speck, as part of Earth. And that loving green light enveloping all of Earth, everyone and everything. And if you wish, an even tinier speck as the whole multiverse. Feel your love energy, embrace all of creation, and share your intention for love and light, peace and justice, and abundance for all. And allow yourself to receive those blessings in return, because they are there for you as well. When you're ready, please open your eyes and return to our session. Okay, Dan's going to start the slides. Okay, if you could advance a couple slides, Dan. Thank you so much. So thank you, Tom, also for that introduction. And I'm going to start this talk by giving you a little bit of the front story. Tom gave a lot of it. I really thank him for that. But I want to focus more on the backstory. So what is happening behind the scenes? And I'm really going to frame it in within what is called the hero's journey. And then I'm going to talk about how I believe that we are on a hero's journey to help to co-create the new Earth, and a possible approach and strategy for doing this individually and collectively through what I'm calling flow leadership. Next slide. So my front story would read very much like my resume, because that's how the old Susanna always thought about herself. So, you know, my degrees in pharmacy and pharmaceutical science, and my tenure track position at VCU, where I eventually got tenure, and my 2.2 kids. You can see that little 0.2 just came about last year. and when I got tenure, it fulfilled the dream that I had for a long time. And not only my dream, but also that of my Chinese parents, who are immigrants from China. And I would have thought that that would have been the happiest day of my life. But in reality, what it was one of the worst things that ever happened to me, because I realized that I had been chasing somebody else's dream. And granted, it was my own path, I chose it, but what I realized was it wasn't true to me. It wasn't true to who I am. And my life that appeared beautiful and perfect was actually a disaster. My health was in shambles, my marriage was on the rocks, And I just couldn't imagine going back and doing that work. So I took the very unusual step of quitting my day job and well, giving up tenure actually. And I continued in my teaching role and eventually moved into administration, which was a surprise to me how much I enjoyed it, especially because the faculty always talk about administration as the dark side. So, but I loved it. It gave me a sense of meaning and purpose. And I continued in that work and became involved in leadership and career development. And one day I had this aha moment. Somebody said to me, "Oh my gosh, you should do this for a living. Thank you so much." And the previous 99 times that I was told that, I said, "Do what for a living? We're just talking." But for some reason that day, it kind of clicked with me. And this person who had been an atheist her whole life suddenly realized, oh my gosh, I think I've just discovered my calling. And I didn't even know I didn't have one or that I was missing it. I don't know, the disastrous health and failed career path and marriage that was disintegrating should have been a clue for me. But I realized that there was something bigger for me out there. So I decided to go back to school and get a degree in applied positive psychology, which is the science of well-being, because pharmaceutical science didn't really prepare me for this. And then I got a bunch of coaching credentials to give me the skills so I could really do this work. And this was part of a larger renaissance for me because my marriage dissolved a couple of years before that. And this was part of what I consider, what I later learned to be called post-traumatic growth. And so I had this beautiful blossoming and growth phase after making these changes in my life. And I think it opened me up, even though I was, I guess I would say an open atheist at this point. It opened me up to this as a possibility. So it became a beautiful journey. During my degree, I decided to focus on callings for my capstone. And I set out in search of my dream job, which opened up at the University of Georgia. So my my new husband, Chris, and I moved to Athens in 2016, where I was there to support faculty success for the 3,300 faculty at the university. I added well-being to my job description because I know that if people are thriving, then they'll be successful at whatever they choose to do. So, or they're more likely to be successful at it. And so I was also on a secret mission to change higher education. Next slide, please. So what I learned during my capstone process was that that what I had been through as a backstory is really, I think, well described in what Joseph Campbell calls the hero's journey. And you may be familiar with this, but Joseph Campbell was a comparative mythologist who studied all the tales and legends and stories and religions from across time and culture. And he looked for common themes. And the most common theme was one that he called the hero's journey. And since it's so ubiquitous in the human story, it's also so resonant with us. And if we think about the epic tales that we love, like Star Wars, Harry Potter, The Lord of the Rings, they all have features of the hero's journey. Campbell, unfortunately, was, well, I guess as we all are, was a product of his time. And since then some have reframed the narrative and the concept to have a more feminine sensibility. So you can also call it the heroine's journey, but the hero's journey doesn't refer to any specific gender. And since I'm more familiar with this version of it, I'm going to just refer to it as the hero's journey. So anyway, the hero's journey has characteristic features that Campbell describes. It involves the hero or heroine leaving home and being called to a grand adventure. being called to adventure. And if the hero chooses to go, then he or she will encounter challenges, tests, allies, enemies, have great challenges, and if successful, will go through this phase where there's a great reward and return and resurrection. And what that feels like is as if, he describes it as if doors are flying open, as if you are getting supernatural help, and that you're flying on the wings of your destiny. And the hero then comes home bearing a gift from the journey, and that gift is the lost wisdom of our generation. So in other words, we are meant, according to Campbell, to go on these journeys so that we can remember what we already know as a collective. So remembering what we already know, and we have to do that again and again. And that is the human condition, and it's the human opportunity. The part that I think is so interesting is the call, because if in the movies, the hero just seems to heed the call and off he or she goes. But we also Campbell also talks about when we refuse the call. And if we keep refusing the call, he says that we run the risk of psychological crucifixion. Okay, we probably all can resonate with what that must feel like. And you can tell from my story that I have been there, done that. And I also believe that if we do that repeatedly, then we go through this little side loop that I affectionately call rock bottom. And so I love rock bottom, let's be clear, because it's the place where you feel like you have no other choice but to make a change in your life and re-examine your beliefs, your thoughts, your practices, because that's what got you there in the first place. So I've mentored a lot of students and faculty and other friends and loved ones during my long life. And they often come to me and are crying in my office or whatever. And people ask me, why are people always crying in your office, Susanna? But people come and tell me their stories about rock bottom, and I go, oh, wonderful, I'm so excited for you, congratulations. And they just look at me like I'm crazy, but it's a place where people have the opportunity to crack open and embark or continue on their hero's journey. Next slide, please. Okay, so I had gone through this cycle a couple times, I think, and I think you get the sense of that, going around and rediscovering myself. And Chris and I are in Athens, Georgia, and it is the most joyful, beautiful experience I could have ever imagined. It was better, my life was better than anything I could have ever micromanaged and controlled into place. You know the outcome the first time I tried to do that. I got everything the way I wanted it, and it was awful. So this time I decided to just be open, which was very uncharacteristic for me, and let it unfold. And what I discovered is that life was more beautiful than anything I could have ever imagined or designed or micromanaged into place. So this was my ordinary world, but next slide. It was not to last because, as Tom pointed out, just a year and a half into this, I lost my beloved sister to cancer, and coming back from her service literally within days, we learned about Chris's stage 4 cancer. And this atheist knew in the moment that the only thing that was going to get me through this was post-traumatic growth. I was just hoping and praying. I was praying at that point that that would happen, and to lean into spirit. Somehow I knew that. I'm not sure how. Next slide. This was a very dark time, as you can imagine, not only dealing with the prognosis of 2 to 3 months, and then eventually what came about, which was him passing in 7 months, and then the grief period. But as horrible as it was, it also felt like I'd entered a magical world. Mostly with spirit talking to me through nature. And maybe it was always there and I just never noticed it. That's very possible, but there were just parades of deer going through the forest in my backyard. There were hawks gathering in conference around my fence. There were wasps lining up shoulder to shoulder on the fascia of my garage. And they never built a nest. They just stayed there like they were forming a little fence for me. And then there was the triple rainbows that kept appearing over and over. And then there was what felt more like poltergeist, you know, the lights and the phones and the TVs and the stereo was going on and off like it had a mind of its own. There was a time when this furniture just kind of slid across the floor. So, I mean, I know I wasn't missing that, but it just felt like spirit was talking to me the whole time, inviting me into a new realm. This video didn't come out here, but one of the most mysterious and beautiful things that happened to me was back when Chris and I were together, he would make a point of drawing my bath for me every night. And he'd fill it with these, you know, lush bubbles and candlelight all around. And the Chinese in me was just going, oh my God, it's so wasteful. But my inner child was just delighted, of course, as Chris knew. And he did that until he was too ill to continue to do it. So I resumed drawing my own bath. And what I noticed was that when I was putting the water in, letting the water go in, that a spiral was appearing in the foam. And this little video was just showing the spiral appear. And this happened night after night after night. And I'm a little embarrassed to admit that how many days it took me before I said, what is this? And so I finally went and asked the Google machine, and I thought, surely this must be a thing, but I couldn't find anything, at least at the time. But I just thought it was so amazing. And this continued pretty much almost every single night until I left Athens, like over a year later. Next slide. So I'm just sitting here wondering what to do with my life and how to manage this. And a nurse at the oncology floor referred us to a healer in the community, Reiki and shaman healer. And she came to the house, and that was the weekend that the parade of deer went through my yard. And on a good weekend, I might usually see 5 or 6, but on this weekend, there were dozens, at least 30 that I could see. And when she was there, I said, Heather, all these deer came out for you. And she said, no, they're here for you. And little atheistic me is going, what do you mean? But Heather later offered me a session. So after the session, she said to me that a being had come to her during her work, and the being appeared to be very opaque, which according to her reflected a spiritual master. And she appeared to be an Asian female, an elderly Asian female who lived in ancient times, who was a medicine woman. And she showed Heather her craft. She used the spirit of the mountains and the stream in her medicine. And at the end, she told Heather that I could call her by the name grandmother, and that she would teach me her medicine. And I said, she's in the spirit realm, right? Yes. How is she going to teach me her medicine? And Heather just said, meditate, Susanna. Next slide. So I said, okay. So I just started, experimenting with everything. And it was delightful and confusing. And, I thought I was crazy. The learning always continues, of course. And I was largely there on my own trying to figure this out, which was really challenging. And it was so much trial and error, mostly error, especially until I learned about this thing called discerning, which somebody had told me about that before I came out spiritually to my family in a way that was not fun. Next slide. But that gave me some comfort, but again, not a lot of clarity until this thing happened where I had coincidentally been taking this certification program where I was learning about adult development theory and learning how to do assessments and coaching around that. And it was an online program of about 30 people from all around the world. And they put us into little learning trios so that we could practice together. And one of the women in the trio was named Heather, and she lived in Athens, this little college town in rural Georgia. And of course we became friends. And she said to me at one point, hey, I'm taking an online class in how to channel my spirit guides. And I'm like, okay, I'm down for that. And it turns out it was from a woman in Virginia who was offering this. I haven't met her in person. Her name is Kristen McCormick. And before I knew it, I was channeling like a pro. So this was a big deal, as you can imagine. But also confusing because, you know, throughout this, and probably everybody here has experienced this, I just kept saying, have I lost my mind? But I also kept saying to myself, well, surely you don't lose your mind by just taking a little class. So sometimes I still say that to myself. So I'm making progress. And then one day I just was realizing that I still didn't know what was coming of all this. So I thought, well, maybe I'll just ask for help. So I prayed to Spirit and I said, please show me the way that I could be of the maximum positive impact in service to my authentic purpose. Next slide. And before long, I was offered an invitation by Spirit. It was an invitation to leadership. Spirit said, the world needs a leader and you can do it. Show them the way. And then Spirit went on to talk about becoming the person that I am meant to be. And so I'm going to read you a snippet of this download because it was meaningful to me, but I know that much of what Spirit tells me is for us. It's for all of us. So I believe this is for you as well. Next slide. Oh, sorry, one more slide. Okay, so Spirit says that when you become the person you are meant to be, you will find that the world can be a loving and beautiful place for everyone, including the most disadvantaged and deprived people on earth. What is most fortunate about that is when the world becomes more beautiful, then so does what we want for each other too. What is most beautiful about that is when the world becomes more beautiful, then the others in the world will want that for future generations as well. When that happens, the rest of the world will want to do the right thing and become what you envision it to become. So Spirit is talking about us becoming who we are meant to be. And then that'll make the world a more beautiful place. We'll want that for everyone, including future generations. And that it will become our reality. So right around this time, Chris and I had been in the hospital for about 2 weeks after spending a beautiful summer celebrating what we thought was a new chapter in our life, because he had really what amounted to a miraculous recovery. But the side effects of the medications he was on started to take its toll. And even though he had been having cycles of great recovery, we're going to go home, and then a big setback, I was hopeful that we would be leaving the hospital soon. So next slide. So this little passage came about a few days later, and it was spirit preparing me for what was to come, and offering me some healing and a path to accessing my sense of our union even after he transitioned. This was part of a much longer narrative download. I'm only going to read this little section because I thought it was so beautiful and hopefully helpful for anyone who is feeling loss of a loved one. Spirit said, "Feel the rapture of the twilight on the lake in the summer's eve, and feel Chris with you there too. Feel the way the wood hewn feels rough, and feel Chris wearing his wedding ring. Feel the way the sun rises in the morning and know Chris is there watching it with you. Feel sure about these things, Susanna, because they're true. Find the time to let these things settle into your heart, for they'll provide comfort to you when you need it. Feel the way the words make you feel and know that they are true." So a few days later, after the miraculous recovery of his kidney shut down, and the doctor sent us home for hospice, and Chris passed away a few days later. And if I had any doubt about where I was in the journey of the hero's journey, I knew I was right square in the middle of the ordeal phase, and that it would continue going forward for some time. Next slide. What I know about the innermost cave is that, for me at least, it was in parallel and concurrent with the ordeal. That so much of what was so challenging was the isolation of this whole process, because we had only been in Athens a short while when this happened, and our loved ones were 500 miles away. And so I mainly just sat in our Florida room with the forest and the creek, and I was there with Spirit. And there I held sanctuary and vigil and healed with earth. This phase of the hero's journey, Campbell calls the innermost cave, and he also describes it as the belly of the whale, as in Jonah. And the imagery that I love the most that depicts the cave is from Star Wars. And if you might remember that scene where Luke and Han and Leia are in this room full of trash, and there's nowhere to go. Right. And just when you think it couldn't get worse, Tom already named it, like the walls and the ceilings start coming in. It's a trash compactor. And so this is another great example of rock bottom. Yay, we're in rock bottom. And so I had to just keep remembering that, like, this is my rock bottom. I'll get through this. It's temporary. Next slide, please. So the next phase is tests, enemies, and allies. And if you recall, in the epic tales, the antagonist is somebody external, like Darth Vader. And we have a tendency to want to externalize what our challenges are. And this was a time for me to really internalize what I'm here to do. And if you remember, the hero eventually realizes that the journey is really internal, that to meet this grand challenge, the hero has to go inside and transform him or herself so that we can be grander inside as well, so that we can rise to that challenge. And so there were what felt like enemies, but really they were my teachers. And this was the time where I went from knowing that in my head to knowing it in my heart and soul. And it's not just the enemies, but all the challenges are all part of that process of knowing that in your heart and soul, that these are all part of our journey, part of our path, part of our destiny. And I wasn't there by myself. I mean, fortunately, I had a couple of dear women who reached out to me, Connie and Patty. But even still, most of the time, I felt like I was walking alone. And I bought this little painting at Crossroads Coffee Shop when I moved back to Richmond. And I thought that the mood of it just perfectly captured how it felt to be walking by myself, but being held by spirit, being held by my loved ones. But no matter what, you still have to be the one to put one foot in front of the other and which direction you want to go. Next slide. One of the other lessons that I learned on a visceral level was this comment from Spirit. Spirit said, all our problems are made up. And if you think about it, the things that we tend to value, and I personally used to just get so frantic and scared about, are things like money, time, status, power, even what other people think. Like all of those things are made up. They're in our head. They're socially constructed. They're sort of arbitrarily decided by us or the collective. And even the things that aren't made up, like this podium or my home or my loved ones, everything here is temporary. And the only thing that is eternal is our souls, and that our souls are one with all of creation. And when we really remember that on a day-to-day level, that we realize that there is no fear or loss or deprivation or even suffering, because we are part of creation in a way that is inseparable, and we never really want for anything. And when we can really internalize that, not just in our mind, but our heart and our soul, then what becomes available to us is an unbelievable sense of peace. And so the blessing of this ordeal was internalizing these life lessons and bringing me the gift of so much peace, unlike I could have ever dreamed of. Next slide, please. So if you make it through the ordeal, then there's the reward, doors flying open, wings of destiny, all that, the road back and the resurrection. And shortly after Chris passed away, Spirit offered me the first step of my mission, which is to quit my job, my dream job. I always say it like that. Quit my dream job, move back to Richmond, put all my savings and much of even my non-liquid assets into starting a nonprofit called the Foundation for Family and Community Healing, focusing on relationship education. And I said, are you nuts? Do you know how long I've been saving this money so that I could have financial security and that I can retire whenever I want? And Spirit's like, yes. And I just thought about it and thought how ridiculous that sounded. Like I'm going to just go and retire. Like I'm going to just go enjoy my life at this point in time. I don't think so. You know, even if I could, the world is suffering. And I thought, this is my chance to make a change for the world. Our communities and Earth cannot wait, and I can do this. And even if it's a great, big, miserable failure, at least I could say I tried. Next slide. So that's what I did. I packed my bags and I moved back to Richmond, gave up my dream job, and committed my savings. And my plan B was to move into the basement of my kids' homes and be their au pair. Don't tell them I said that. But the mission of the foundation, and this was given to me by Spirit as well, is to help all of us, including myself, learn to create healthy and rewarding relationships with ourselves, each other, Earth, and the loving force that connects us. Next slide, please. And I'm really interested in how the evolution of this nonprofit has occurred because the first conception of it was written by me. I wrote a business plan. By some miracle, I took a class on this. I don't know why, but you know, in previous years actually. And it went from a focus being on me and what I know and what I can create and replicate across the world to a focus on we, on all of us providing our knowledge and wisdom to the world and to everybody. And that shift just happened gradually over time because of guidance from Spirit. I have to say, I think it's still modest to say it, that it's a brilliant strategy, because honestly, I didn't think of it. It came through me, and it was, I would say, not intentional, but it was a requirement, because even though I was given the mission, there's a million directions that you can take it. And indeed, I mean, I got hundreds of suggestions. Look at this book, website, organization, product, podcast, you know, website, talk to this person. I mean, a million of them. And it was overwhelming. And finally, I just said, okay, Spirit, what do I do? Do I look at this, that, and the other? And I get a yes, no, 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 absolutely not, no, yes, you know, and so that's what I did. It didn't matter how small the decision was, I checked with Spirit. And it didn't mean that I wasn't asking questions and what and when and how all the time. That gradually dissipated, and now it is just much more organic and intuitive that we're steering foundation to where it needs to go. Okay, next slide, please. Sorry. Okay, one more. So this is a bit of an example of how the strategy changed over time. So again, instead of programs by a few people, that we're including content from the many. And Foundation is just a sandbox that enables folks to put their content out to the world. So we act as editors and curators, instructional designers, marketers, so that people doing this wonderful work that is in alignment with our mission and vision don't have to learn how to do social media, for example. Instead of focusing on a few well-resourced organizations, we're focusing on everyone. We're doing using a gift economy for most of our products so that the whole world can afford it. So instead of just a few of us providing content, again, this community of educators, healers, people of wisdom who have something to share with the world. And we do it through income sharing so that it is also a sustainable relationship. And we're focusing less on knowledge and education, though that's what we are doing. But more importantly, we are focusing on behavioral change, because after spending almost 3 decades in higher education, I know how much knowledge just sits there and doesn't go anywhere of meaning. So we are helping people develop skills so that they can create healthy relationships and connections, and they can also heal them. Okay, next slide. And it is on the whole spectrum of all that we are in relationship with. So it has topics related to our relationship with ourselves and each other, which I think a lot of other programs are doing. But it's also about our relationship with Earth and the loving force that connects us. So the loving force that connects us is, what is our purpose in life? Who are we meant to be? And how do we connect with that to bring joy and awe and wonder and pleasure and creativity in the way that is truly us, the way that we are here to serve all of creation? And so importantly, our relationship with Earth. While I was sitting in my Florida room, Earth was the one that was there for me. And I realized, oh my gosh, I had just been ignoring her for decades. You know, as a kid that grew up with a TV and air conditioning and cars, and even though I had been ignoring Earth for most of my life, Earth was there for me, and she welcomed me back without bat of an eye. And I realized how much we were taking her for granted, and that we are in relationship with Earth too. We have forgotten that we are. And it's not just a physical relationship, but it is a reciprocal, emotional, and spiritual relationship. And that part of our mission is to bring people back to that knowing. Next slide. The way I explain this to people is to compare it to what would you do if a loved one was ailing, because we can access that a little bit easier, perhaps. And no one has to tell you what to do when you have a loved one who's ailing. You know what to do. You stop what you're doing and you go spend time with them, and you are present. You put your phone away. You notice, how are they looking and feeling? And you see what needs to be done for them. Do they need a bath, a snack, a blanket? And you just go do it. No one has to tell you. You spend time talking and listening, hold their hand, you touch them. You remember how wonderful they are to you, how kind and generous and beautiful. And you express your gratitude and appreciation for who they are in your life. You might also entertain them with a song or a story, or maybe celebrate them with a poem, or create an interpretive dance for them, expressing your affection for them. And if you pray or meditate, you would, of course, include them in your prayers. You'd invite others to do the same. And most of these things don't cost a dime, not a dime. And they don't even necessarily have to take any extra time, because Earth is here no matter where you are, even in the cities where they say there's no nature. Earth is everywhere. You don't have to go to see her. This little graphic is on our website, and I'll give you the URL for it later so that you can take a closer look. So where we are with this is that we're developing, we have launched our platform and our first offering of online skill development modules. And by coincidence, it launched on Earth Day. And we have these 6 right now that are available, but we also have ones that are for a fixed tuition, led by a facilitator in a small group. But next slide, please, Dan. So these are the ones we have. Our flagship program is relationship well-being. It's about your relationship with yourself and each other, basic relationship skills. And this is also the foundation for leadership, by the way. We have a module for youth and one for adults, because I'm tired of us learning in our silos. And families ought to be able to learn together if they want. So these are designed to be used by people either on their own or in groups around their dining room table, in their schools, churches, workplaces, wherever. And they're self-guided and self-facilitating. So you don't need to hire a facilitator, one of us, for you to learn. We also have one on anxiety, happiness, and wellness, and one called implementing zero waste strategies. Next slide, please. So we're in a growth phase and we're doing things like I'm learning all about marketing and contracts, but we are in the process of reaching out to everyone now. We're reaching out to learners, both individuals and in groups. We have a pipeline of content that is on its way to you, and we'll always be looking for others who have this wisdom and education that they want to share with the world that is in line with our mission. We're looking for partners who believe in our product and want to share it with their community and promote its use, outreach partners. partners who we can write grants with, sponsors, because some organizations are more resourced than others, and there are so many in need. And we're looking for help for getting the word out like this. So I really appreciate the opportunity to talk with all of you today to help bring awareness to what we are doing and what our mission is. This is, in essence, our love offering to the world. And I believe it's an innovation that is needed at this point in time by all of us in different ways. And it's more than that. Next slide. Because according to Spirit, this is the skills that humanity needs to move into the new earth. And Spirit told me about New Earth when I was in Athens. I'm like, oh, that sounds good. But it wasn't until I became part of spiritual community did I hear others talk about this as a given, as something that's already happening. So I'm very glad for that affirmation that this is many of our sensibility. Next slide. And I would imagine that we all have a different idea of what New Earth looks like. I'd love to see some type of summary or study on that. But what I understand about it is that it's going to be a time where there is peace, love, and light, and justice, care for all, and abundance, that we're not going to be, we're not going to be hungry or lacking education or housing anymore. And that we're going to make care for Earth one of our major focal points. In essence, that we're going to be moving from the Anthropocene, which is this idea that humanity is the center of the ecosystem. It's like we had this conversation about Earth being the center of the solar system already, but we still think we're the center of the ecosystem, to the Ecozoic era, which Thomas Berry coined this as the time where we are going to be focusing on Earth. And I hope we're going to do it in a way that doesn't even, that's not even of the golden rule, which is to treat Earth as we would want to be treated ourselves. In my view, she is a unique, brilliant biological organism with thoughts and feelings of her own. And it's hard enough to know what other humans want, much less for us to figure out what Earth wants. So maybe instead we adopt the platinum rule, and that is we care for Earth the way Earth wants to be treated or cared for. Obviously, that's a big challenge, because even those of us who consider ourselves Earth empaths probably are going to have a different interpretation of that. So we're going to have to figure that out at some point. Next slide. So I'm going to just tell you what I've been told for what it's worth. This is, again, a passage that Spirit shared with me. And I'll just remind you that this is Spirit's words. It's not necessarily the words I would choose. But this is about what Earth wants from us now. Earth wants to be heard and heal and to be abundant, but man has to decide whether they want to be part of the solution. She will help man find solutions if man commits to being the ones to take the lead on the project. She wants man to be the ones to lead the healing, because man's the beneficiary of the abundance of Earth. There's no better way to believe that God will help heal the Earth than to pray for his help. He will help Earth heal and find a way to provide abundance for all. She will be the one who wants to provide for all of mankind, but she wants to know that she'll be appreciated if she does so. There are ways to create the right circumstances. That is by man having the faith it can happen. So she wants our commitment, our leadership, prayers, appreciation, and faith. Next slide. So I'd like to take a few minutes to lead a short meditation for our beloved Earth. If you wish to participate, and if you wish to close your eyes, please do so. And let us pick up where we left off from the opening meditation. Just resume that golden column and white column, suspending you between heaven and earth. And the loving green light of your heart chakra, embracing and caressing all of earth, offering love and light, justice, beauty and truth, healing for all. Now let's focus specifically on Earth and all her amazing flora, fauna, and minerals. Feel into all her parts, her water, which is her blood, her land, which is her body, her air, which is her lungs. Feel into all of them, from the micro, the smallest rocks or critters, to the macro, like the oceans, the mountains, the sky. Feel her entire presence to your core. Feel into Gaia herself, Mother Earth, a gorgeous, sentient, and even brilliant, unique biological organism who's cared for us our whole life, no matter how we treat her. Feel her love embrace you. It's unconditional. Feel your love for her and her every heart. Take this moment to thank her and express your gratitude for every bit of her, all of her abundance and generosity, regardless of whether you believe she's sentient. Feel her unconditional love for you, and whatever else she might offer to you right now. Perhaps a feeling, a message, an image. Deeply listen to the one who has always cared for you. Sink a little deeper into that gratitude and appreciation. And you're knowing she's always there for every one of us. Remember your relationship with her. It's just like our other human loved ones, or even the things we treasure and depend upon, like our pets, plants, and homes. Now, imagine her healing. Water, soil, and air, clean and healthy, vibrant, abundant, robust, all up and down the food chain, thriving, brimming with life. Spirit, please show us the way to support Earth's restoration and evolution to her full health and her own highest self. Please open your eyes when you're ready. Next slide. So what I see coming up in New Earth is a new metric where we move away from standards of money and power and acquisition to one of care. Care especially for Earth and those that cannot care for themselves as primary. And then also care for each other and ourselves too. Also, as important is the metric of becoming who we are meant to be. Because if you just imagine that we each became who we were meant to be, well, then we wouldn't really have to fight or be in competition, because we know that every one of us have an important role, not only in the collective society, but as the one. And that we are going to be measuring that instead. And when we do so, we can bring our highest purpose to realization and manifestation on Earth. And imagine if each of us did that, that our soul's purpose is not just something that we think about doing, but it is our way of life. And it is the standard by which we hold ourselves and each other accountable. Next slide, please. And imagine if you did that, then manifesting your soul's purpose and intention right here, right now, that we create heaven on earth for ourselves. And it is right here for us. It always has been. We just have to decide to do it. And imagine now that there's a critical mass of us doing that, or even the collective. We can create heaven on earth for everybody and everything. That is our opportunity. Next slide. So in my view, the new earth is a place where we become our higher selves. That is physical expressions of our soul's purpose, not just our best selves. For when we actualize our soul's intentions on earth, we create heaven on earth together. That's what is being offered to us now. And it's not just us that is evolving. Next slide. Spirit told me that Earth is evolving too, to become the brightest star in the galaxy. She is evolving, and there's nothing that we can do to stop her. We can help, or we can try to get in the way, but it's inevitable. And we just have a choice as to whether we are going to evolve with her, or if we want to stay stuck in our rock bottom place and go by the way of the dinosaurs. Next slide. So I am conceptualizing the hero's journey as a collective journey. And here we are. We can't go back to this ordinary world. There is no going back. We are in rock bottom as a collective. Or at least I sure hope it's rock bottom, because we might have farther to fall first before we're willing to part with our thoughts, beliefs, and practices that got us here. But the good news is that we can move forward when we do. We're going to have to. And what will become available to us is the reward, where we're flying on the wings of destiny with supernatural help. And then bring back the lost wisdom of our generation. So I part with Joseph Campbell a bit on this idea that this is a circle, because I think what actually happens is when the hero comes back, right, that the hero is transformed and the wisdom transforms the ordinary world. And so we actually end up a few inches or whatever up from the screen. And then we go around again and around again. And so we are elevating with each cycle. We are elevating and expanding, both individually and as a collective, because we're all doing this, even if we don't realize it. And by understanding that this is the cycle, we can go, okay, I know this cave, I know this whale, I know this trash compactor. You know, I'm going to lean into the lessons of our collective timeout, because the faster I learn it, the quicker I'm out of here. So next slide. So yes, it's a spiral. It's a spiral. Isn't it beautiful? And it's not just this idea of it. It is, how do we do it? How do we make this spiral? Well, one thing I already mentioned was that we become who we are meant to be. And we understand that the process of that learning and growth is through that journey, both individually and collectively. I also want to talk a little bit about leadership, next slide, because leadership just means creating change. And sometimes we think of the leader as the one standing at the front of the room or whatever, but we're all leaders. Every one of us creates change. And even the person in the background quietly working, they are servant leaders, as meant in a good way. And so we all create change. And so how do we lead? Well, right now I feel that our habit is to be, our habit is out of balance. And we over rely on what I'm calling a yang energy, or it's often equated with the masculine. And the mantra of the yang energy is work hard. And absolutely, we need to work hard. Look what has been created from our hard work, our beautiful society. And it also has its limitations, because at some point, if we're out of balance, then we're going to have what we're having. And so by creating balance, we invite the yin, which tends to be a more feminine energy. It's open, it's receptive, it's emotional and intuitive. And I call that working soft. So we have to balance working hard and working soft. And I'm not an expert in leadership either, but from what I understand, leadership frameworks include not only task, but also relationship. And so what I'm saying, it's not just our relationship with each other, it's the quality of our relationship and cultivating the whole of the yin, because it's our relationship with all there is and our purpose. So what I mean by this is, if the yang is controlling, then we balance it with trust. If yang is directing, we balance it with collaboration. If yang is thinking, we balance it with feelings and intuition. If yang is about making it happen, we also allow it to emerge and unfold. And instead of just being so metric driven, money, status, power, acquisition, we also balance it with purpose and focus on relationships. And instead of just always assigning, we balance it with co-creating. So that we have both working in tandem. So the way I like to think about this in terms of my own practice is that I let the yin guide my focus. Like, which article do I read? Which person do I talk to? But then I use the yang to make it happen. And it's just a back and the forth. And again, it's not just for the big picture things, it's even with the small things. And that we keep the balance between the two so that they're working in harmony. I'm also not suggesting that we just focus on yin. I think that's just as bad in the opposite direction, but that we have them both integrated in a healthy way, because then we can create flow. So if you imagine a bicycle and we have one huge wheel and one tiny wheel, that's just not going to be very stable and not be able to move very well or very adeptly. But if we have them both working in harmony, then that thing can really go. And if you think about it as water instead, that having too much of one or the other makes us rigid and maybe we freeze. But when we find balance, then we can flow. We create liquidity, fluidity, and resilience. Next slide. So I know you know the metaphor of being in the stream. And so what I am suggesting is that we apply the stream analogy to everything in our lives, because those small decisions matter too. And our way of being determines our outcomes. I think this also means in cultivating that flow and the balance means following it. So by following the flow, I'm talking about following and embracing those things that feel exciting and meant to be, and synergistic and creative and rewarding, and has this positive fluid movement. And the things that feel stuck, that there's resistance and a lot of negativity and problems we can't get around, even though we try over and over, that maybe we let those go a little bit. Because I have found that just following the flow is what leads to that place where it feels better than anything you could have ever dreamed of by yourself, and carries us to our destiny. When I first heard about Joseph Campbell, I heard this quote, "Follow your bliss." And atheist me said, "What the heck is that?" I think I didn't even know really what bliss was. And even if I did, how do you follow that? Bliss is so rare, so rare. How do you follow that? But what that means, I think, is follow that flow, that energy that's inviting and makes you feel curious and excited. And that's what I look for with my work, my projects, and my collaborations, my interactions. Is it feeling fluid and moving? Is it exciting people? Are they getting great ideas? Is it sparking energy? And if it's not, well, maybe we just put it on the shelf for now. And I think it is just so much more fun and effective, so much easier than micromanaging and controlling what is not meant to be. Next slide. So my conclusion from this is that life can be better than anything you can ever imagine. So let it unfold. Not just with the big things, but with the little things. Next slide. And I really appreciate the opportunity and this invitation today, Tom, because just preparing this presentation provided a lot of clarity for me on some things. And one of them is that I am a frog. And there's so many metaphors about the frog that come to mind. I'm kind of curious as to where your mind went with that. But what I mean by that is, refers to a parable from Joseph Campbell. And he tells this story about a princess playing with her favorite trinket, a golden ball by the side of a river. And the ball ends up in the bottom of the river. She's distraught. Oh my gosh, my most treasured item. And this frog comes along and recovers the ball and offers it to her and asks if he could be her friend. And the princess runs away. So don't be the princess today. Don't run away from this call. I know that this is one of my roles in life. I have this superpower that I see the best in everyone. I don't mean the best, but I mean, I see their potential. I can sense everybody's potential and how big and beautiful they really are. And we keep ourselves small because of fear. But I can see beneath that fear, I can feel it. And I think, naturally inviting people into their higher selves. Sometimes it doesn't go so well. But I am that frog. I am your frog today. Next slide. So I hope your reception of this invitation feels provocative, and that you will continue this conversation and dialogue and journey wherever you are, however you choose. And if you would like to continue this conversation and journey with us, with me, you can join us in our foundation, at the foundation. We have a new short URL called healingedu.org. And by, again, some miracle of nature, or of spirit, I am the host of a radio program on Thursdays at 5 p.m., something I'd never dreamed of, called Finding Our Fit. And it's not only on the radio, but it is online on their webpage, on Facebook and YouTube. And I would love to actually dialogue with you all. We take calls and chats on that program. Next slide. I also invite you to reach out to me. If any of these things really spoke to you about our work in the foundation, I invite you to email me at susanna@familyandcommunityhealing.org. There's the website for the foundation as well, healingedu.org. And you can also learn more about me and my work at susannacalvert.com. So I thank you again for spending this beautiful morning together in fellowship with the beloved community that has been so nurtured by Tom and all the others here. And I'm so grateful to be among you today. I did leave some time for us to chat if you wish. Thank you.
All right.
So let me stop sharing. So let's see. Hang on a sec. Okay, so this is Dan. I would like you to raise your electronic hand on Zoom if you have a question for Susanna, and I'll alternate questions. I have a mic behind me in the room. So anybody who would like to ask a question in the room, just come to the mic behind me, and I'll just alternate between the two. I will allow you to unmute yourself now. All right. Okay, we have Wilma. Is that Wilma?
Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Hiding behind the mask because I have to take care of my grandson, and I want to be able to look my son in the eye and say, yes, I took all the precautions I could.
Is it
Good
on?
for you, Wilma.
I don't know, I was just trying to figure out time. There we go.
Yeah.
How did you do that?
You might want to check chat.
Yeah.
Are you ready
Go
for
ahead.
this?
Yes.
You are an answer to prayer. I love what you talked about, and I have to digest it, and I will connect with you. Thank you
Thank
very,
you.
very much for
Thank
what
you.
you were talking about. Namaste.
Namaste. I have some business cards too, if that would be helpful. Thank you, Wilma. Appreciate it.
So I don't see any electronic hands. Is anybody in the chat? Ryan says presentation's been fantastic.
Dan, I'm just going to speak out in answer to that. It won't let, for some reason, it let me unmute myself, but it says the host will not let me show video.
Yeah, I haven't, what I was trying to do, hang on a second, I'll allow that.
Thank you.
Actually, it does say that you can start your video.
Now?
Yeah, I did that a little while ago.
Okay, oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, the reason for that was because I was trying to get the speaker view and I couldn't get a speaker
Yeah.
view of the speaker.
Well, that's okay. I just, I knew it was on your end, so thank you.
Yeah.
And thank
Right.
you, Susanna. It was wonderful to be here and to hear this.
Thank you, Janie. Glad you're here.
Okay, looking for chats. If you could raise your electronic hand, I can see you quicker. Not seeing anybody. No questions?
I've got one behind you.
Oh, okay. Got one behind me.
Sorry about that. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I really
You got to get right on the mic, please.
resonate with what you're saying. And it made me think of something I read in, I believe it was Rupert Sheldrake's book, Morphic Resonance. And he talks about how when, and the Heart Math Institute talks about this to Doc Childers, that when human beings are in the forest, it takes about 15 to 20 minutes, but you achieve something, or something occurs to you, rather, it's more of a yin thing, where your heart and your brain, the sine waves and the rhythm of your heart and your brain waves, they achieve something called coherence, and you actually experience coherence with the forest, the microbiome that you, and they've tested this with these little meters that they stick in the soil, and they've detected that a forest communicates with itself up to like 15 miles away from the center where they're testing. It's pretty amazing.
Wow.
So the forest, so it really is alive, and when you're in it,
Yes.
you're actually a participant of it. So that's kind of what you're talking about with being a part of Gaia. We really,
Yes.
really are. So anyways, very cool. I talk to my patients about that all the time, and I try to get them to meditate. So thank you.
Good to you. Well, worthy endeavor. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks.
Okay, we have Judy Hart on Zoom. Why don't you ask your question?
Oh, good morning. Am I unmuted? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Good morning. I'm actually going to cry. I'm so impressed with your humility and generosity. Instead of offering your services to people, which would be extraordinary, and I'm a little disappointed that you haven't quite done that, but maybe you also do that, but to have created this platform where a lot of people who have gifts to give can share them through your platform. And I'm seeing a tree with just geometric growth of the wisdom we all need. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate your resonating with our mission so deeply. And I am putting my own stuff out there too. The relationship well-being modules and the happiness modules are my own. And we have a group workshop as well. And I'm creating more content as we go, but I think more importantly that we invite the community to participate. And several of the IONS members like Tom, Al, and Faith are part of our family, and I'm so grateful to them for their support and their contributions too. Thank you, Judy.
Okay. Wilma, go ahead.
Okay, I have a question that came up during the meditation, and I finally got my wits together that I can ask it. So you were talking about visualizing the earth, and I was like, wow, this earth is like a body, you know, like, and the mountains and the oceans, and like you were putting all this analogy, and then you stopped. So where is the earth's brain and where is the earth's spirit? I want to hear your answer before I say what I got.
Great question. I don't know about I'm not sure about the brain. The brain is an electrical organ.
Oh, wow.
So much so and Earth's spirit is
universe?
everywhere, just like
The
we are.
universe?
Yeah,
Like, that's what I got.
I mean, she has a consciousness, and you know, around her corporeal self, just like we do, and I can connect with her just like I connect to anybody else.
Yeah.
So
What came up for me when I asked it, it was because when you ask, you get an answer. So
Yeah.
you just have to be open to the
Yeah.
answer. And sometimes we don't like the answer.
Right.
So this one was, I saw when I said, what's the brain? It was like the kind of like the halo that is around the earth, like the ozone layer.
Mhm.
And then when I asked for, but I liked your answer way better, the electrical field, but that
Yeah.
could also be the nervous system.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and then I'm a physical therapist, so that's why this totally resonated with me. And then when I asked like, what's its spirit? It was the universe. Like you said, all.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for tuning into that. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any more questions from Zoom? Carolyn, well, go ahead and unmute yourself, Carolyn.
Hi, I just wanted to thank you so much. Your meditations and your words have really helped me. I'm someone who's new on their spiritual journey. I have had a lot of moments like, why is this happening? Just hearing that your rock bottoms really led you to this beautiful spirit of the earth that's bigger than yourself is just really empowering. And so I'm really glad I could be here to hear this because it's really needed. And I really think more people should listen to you and hear your story and all of your wisdom. And it was just really beautiful. I loved those meditations so much. So thank you for speaking. And I really gained a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. Best wishes on the beginning of a beautiful journey and relationship with spirit and with yourself and all of creation. It's you have strength and support and help beyond your imagination. So just trust that and remember to discern and ground yourself.
Tom? Okay, we have Tom.
Yeah, Susanna, thank you. Am I hearable now?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. That was, I think, one of the best translations of Joseph Campbell into practical reality that I've ever heard anywhere. Thank you very, very much. In response to what you were asking, Wilma, we had a speaker about 10 years ago, I think it was in May of 2011, as I remember, named Lucia Renee. And Lucia had written a book called Unplugging the Patriarchy, which is much of what Susanna is about with her rebalancing the imbalance of yang versus yin. And and if you would go to that book, it can, I think it's still obtainable on Amazon. She and her group spent a couple of years doing searches for the various locations on Earth of the chakras of the planet. Whether they were correct or not, I don't know. But in any event, it's an interesting investigation that they did. And they went to each one of those and did energy work to try to rebalance the chakras of the planet itself. Treating the planet as a sentient being, and like, the universe, creation as we know it, and I think you would agree with this, Susanna, is really nothing but life. We're just a tiny little expression of that infinite array of life, Earth being another expression of it at a much larger level than we are individually. And so this is just an absolutely wonderful presentation. I'm sorry we didn't have more people in person here. We had a nice group on Zoom, and the power of what you're doing. I mean, obviously you did a lot of work to put this presentation together, and the energetic power of this presentation goes way beyond those in the room, goes way beyond those on Zoom, goes way beyond those who will even hear it on YouTube or wherever you choose to disseminate it, because the energetic power will be like the ripples in a pond when you throw a pebble in it. And so thank you very, very much. It's
Thank
just
you.
absolutely been wonderful.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate it. It's a pleasure to be here.
Anybody else on Zoom have a question or a comment? Terry had one. Oh, there. Go ahead. Go ahead, Terry.
It's Jonathan Fraser on Terry's computer.
Okay.
Hey,
Hi, Susanna. And Susanna, I just let you know, I saw you on Tammy and Sandy's program, and it was wonderful to see a full program, because that was just sort of timing. You just happened to come right up when I clicked on my phone. And I want to ask this question, and I will follow up with you, directly. In relationships, and you mentioned the word silos in your talk.
Right.
Do you feel that there are a strong network of examples of people who are, one, both able to speak between the different languages that people in these silos sort of study and then practice under? That is, that we all do share what you presented in common, Mother Earth, yet how we develop as humans and what we're aware of can lead us into these different silos where we think we have divisions. We spend a lot of time and energy there. So what I'm asking is, do you see organizations or just individuals and then tools that help bridge between those silos? Because you mentioned rock bottom.
Yeah.
Where I've been in listening is I've heard people present who've studied data and who have a similar, not identical, but a similar intent as you're presenting. They're presenting the data and showing that the Earth is actually, from some data analysts, it's actually in as good a place as it's ever been. It's just that we have the ability to end it so many different ways, and our divisions are also so obvious, and the velocity of the transmission of them is so quick today. So
Thank you. Let's see. I think there are always going to be those organizations that bridge. Even our schools do to some degree, because the schools are required to have offices of family engagement or parental engagement. So I think there is a greater awareness of that. But in terms of really, and then there are organizations that teach parenting skills, for example, and help parents be better nurturers and role models. But I can't name any. It doesn't mean that they're not there. But I do think that this is a big issue and we don't pay proper attention to it on so many levels. And I know, for example, Al talks about this a lot, about our union and how important that is. And that I hate to point the finger, but I think it's just a tendency of ours that the media likes to talk about our polarities. You know, there's one view at one end or the other view, and the ones in between are not really given enough attention. And that's where the solutions are. That's where our sense of agreement is somewhere in the middle of that spectrum. But it makes a better story and it provides both sides, supposedly. And so I think it's a systemic issue of how we communicate. It's partly because if we talk about the spectrum, it's complicated. And we have a tendency to want to reduce things to what's easy and sound bites. And, you know, everything is like, you know, it shouldn't be more than 15 characters or whatever. And you can't communicate complexity in 15 characters. And so I think we've gotten a little bit lazy, that we want everything to be really understandable and we don't want to put any effort into it. And I can understand that, like even understanding the most basic thing, like, do I buy this can of seltzer? What are the implications for aluminum versus glass? And who made it? Where did this water come from? Am I taking it from somebody who needs water? Like, you just don't know. And so I feel like, you know, that the best we could do is make an educated guess about these larger problems. But what really seems to be the opportunity is that we take more of a yin attitude and lean into our intuition, and not our knee-jerk reaction, of course, but our intuition on what that path ought to be, because there's no way we can make sense of most of the things in our world. And so I think just having a huge dose of humility, like, I don't have any idea about what to do here or the solution. I'm going to have to trust in spirit. So I don't think I answered your question, except to agree that this is an opportunity for us to build these bridges with everybody and everything in a way that everybody can access. So thank you. I'm not sure if I interpreted your question correctly.
You did. It's a difficult one to answer, and I'll just offer this. There's an author, Paul Hawken. Maybe folks who might know him even from Hawken and Smith Furniture years ago. He's been doing ecologically minded business since he was in his college years, and he's now in his 70s. And most recently, he worked with the project that produced Drawdown, but a couple books before, and I'm putting my hands here, there's a picture of a black person with a white dove between his hands. It's called Blessed Unrest. Right. And it was a large group that studied the whole world for many years. And they, in his quote, which I was looking for to find, he said, if you're not, it's something like this, and he's communicated with me directly to correct this. So I apologize for all those if I get it wrong. He basically says, if you don't look at the world and feel the unrest, you know, you're not aware. But if you're also unaware that there are more people who are working for the connections between all of us and with Earth, you're also unaware. And that's basically, the book fleshes it all out. But it's truly remarkable how you've been called your story. So I want to turn it back to you and just offer that as a piece of hope that there are many, many, many more of us than you. So.
Oh yes, I do know that this is a huge movement, and there are people of consciousness out everywhere who are holding the space and the energy and working, servant leaders behind the scenes, and a smaller number in a visible place. And I feel so much hope during this time when it feels so hopeless to many. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I was told there was something in the chat, but I'm not seeing it.
I'm Rob. I was just going to ask a quick question. Appreciate your presentation.
Get right on the mic, Rob.
And
Get right on the mic.
the wisdom that you shared. And but I've looked at the website for family and community healing and noticed that there were youth involved in the organization. I'm interested in how they engage and then also how we can engage.
Thank you. Well, we don't have too many youth, actually. Our modules, we have a module for youth, and many of our modules are suitable for youth. We did involve youth in the development of the youth module. I do have interns who are pretty young, but we don't have youth currently participating in the organization, but I would love it. I did have one intern who was 13 for a while, and he created some social media for us, but he had other pressing obligations. I had put up a slide about what we need right now, and maybe you weren't here when I talked about it, but we need help getting the word out. We need introductions to organizations and influencers who can believe in this product and are willing to share it with their communities and promote their use. We need all kinds of help and partners. We need people to take the modules and invite their friends to do so and spread the word about it. If you have contacts in PR and that kind of thing, I'm just trying to get it out there as much as possible. If you have specific things you might like to offer, I would love to have a one-on-one with you. And I have a business card. Lauren, if you could maybe pull them out of my tote bag, please feel free to text or send me an email, and I'd love to chat. I think it's no accident this organization is in Richmond. I'm in Richmond, yeah. I'm inviting you for lunch. Okay, great. We have a lunch date. Yeah, I moved back to Richmond in 2019. And I think it's no accident that this organization is meant to have its home here, because of communities like this, like-minded folks who are holding the energy and the space for not just this, but all kinds of beautiful things to emerge and to do it together. I mentioned some of the folks here, Tom, Al, and Faith, who have been so important in enabling our growth. And all but one of those modules were developed by either me or others in the local community. So I just think this is a real hub for healing work. And actually, Tom brought that up after the radio show last week. And I think it's the thing that we all sense, and maybe part of the reason we love our city so much.
Yeah, so. I don't see anybody else on Zoom that has a question.
Okay. Thank you so much. This has been such a pleasure.
Great presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. And by the way, Richmond, I'm enthused that you were guided to come back to Richmond. And I think you and I have discussed this before, but all my guidance has been for years. First of all, that Richmond is a power spot, if you will, so that stuff that is put into the ground, into the earth, here has greater power than if it were done somewhere else. It's not the only place on the planet like that, but it's one of those places. It also, because of its history, going back from the time that the settlers came from England in 1607, it has been a place where much of the energy that's going into creating the dynamics of our country has been generated right here or close by here. And much of that energy is quite negative. With slavery, with what happened with the Native American population in our hands. And so Richmond is a perfect place to undertake a healing of all that. And I'm so delighted that you were guided to come here to start that process, because if we can heal it here, we can heal it everywhere across this country and around the world. Really can. So thank you very much. I would like to close the meeting. Next month, we have Antonia Albano, who will be speaking. I can't recall the name of her. Al, you remember his name? Hold on, I've got it. Antonia has got a new group of assemblage of channeled information, which is quite interesting. I'm familiar with it, and let's see if I can find. Through the help of my search mechanism. Oh, here it is. No, wrong one. Okay, the name of her program is, and she's spoken to our group before, as most of you who are familiar with our group know, Antonia Albano and her husband Barney Brown run and own the South River Highlands Retreat Center up near Lexington, Virginia. And the title of her talk will be Geometric Technologies for the Next Octave of Infinite Possibilities. And as you know from prior exposure to Antonia, this is infinite possibilities of what Susanna was referring to as the love connection that binds us all. And so it will be another very inspiring talk. We hope that the fear factor of the pandemic will calm down sufficiently next month, where we can have more people in person. But if not, we welcome you to join us on Zoom. That's why we're doing both. And so with that, unless anybody else online has something they want to communicate about, I will bid everyone adieu and see you next time. And thanks for coming. And thank you again, Susanna. That was absolutely wonderful.
All right, and this is Dan. Thank you all again, and I'll end the Zoom meeting.